The conference room fell silent. Marcus Chen sat frozen, his pen hovering over the signature line of a $500 million contract. Across the table, the translator smiled. But in the doorway stood a young woman in a housekeeping uniform, her hands trembling, her voice barely a whisper as she said the words that would change everything. I know what they're really saying, and it's not what he's telling you. Before we go further into this story, I want to invite you to subscribe to the Black Voices. We share real stories about resilience, kindness, and the voices that often go unheard. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments what this story means to you. Your voice matters here. Now, let's continue. Marcus Chen had built his company from nothing. 32 years ago, he started with a single construction crew in Detroit, working 18-hour days, sleeping in his truck between jobs, saving every dollar he could. His father had come to America from Taiwan with $40 and a toolbox. His mother cleaned offices at night while studying English from library books. They taught Marcus that hard work was a language everyone understood, and integrity was the foundation of everything worth building. By the time Marcus turned 54, Chen Construction had become one of the largest minority-owned infrastructure firms in the Midwest. They'd built schools, hospitals, community centers, and affordable housing across 7 states. Marcus employed over 300 people. He knew most of their names, asked about their families, showed up at their kids' graduations. He never forgot where he came from or the people who helped him get there, but the company had hit a ceiling. The big contracts, the ones that could take them national, always seemed to go to the established firms with the right connections and the long histories. Marcus had bid on a dozen major projects in the past 5 years. He'd come close twice. Each time he'd been told his proposal was excellent, but they'd gone with someone else, someone with more experience in that particular market. Someone who'd worked with them before. The reasons were always polite and always felt like doors closing. Then the call came from Dubai. A development consortium wanted to build a massive mixed-use project in Houston, $2 billion. Hotels, residential towers, retail space, a cultural center. They were looking for an American partner who understood the local market, who had a reputation for quality and community integration. They'd researched Chen Construction. They were impressed. They wanted to meet. Marcus flew to Dubai with his CFO, Raymond, and his head of legal, Patricia. Both had been with him for over 15 years. They were family. The meetings went well. Better than well. The consortium's representatives were professional, enthusiastic, generous with their time. They toured Marcus through architectural models that took his breath away. They talked about creating something that would transform a neighborhood, provide thousands of jobs, become a landmark for generations. The lead representative was a man named Khalid al-Rashid. Mid-50s, impeccably dressed, educated at Oxford, spoke 5 languages. He was charming and knowledgeable, asking intelligent questions about Marcus's approach to community engagement, his relationships with local unions, his vision for sustainable development. Marcus felt seen in a way he hadn't experienced in years of pitching to American firms who seemed to look right through him. After 3 days of meetings, Khalid invited them to dinner at his home, a stunning villa overlooking the Persian Gulf. The hospitality was extraordinary. The conversation flowed easily. Khalid spoke about his own father's journey as a merchant, the values of hard work and family, the responsibility that came with success. Marcus felt a kinship with this man across cultures and continents. They were builders. They understood what it meant to create something lasting. Near the end of the evening, Khalid grew serious. He said he wanted to be direct. The consortium had reviewed proposals from 3 firms. Chen Construction was their first choice. They wanted to move forward. They would handle financing and international partnerships. Marcus would manage all U.S. operations, hiring, local contracting, community relations. It would be a true partnership. 50-50 split on the profits after costs. The initial contract value would be $500 million, with options for expansion. Marcus felt his heart pound. This was the opportunity that could change everything. Not just for him, but for every person who worked for him, every subcontractor who depended on his projects, every community that would benefit from the development. He asked the questions he needed to ask. About financing, about timeline, about decision-making authority. The answers were all satisfactory. Khalid suggested they formalize the agreement. His legal team could prepare documents. They could sign before Marcus left Dubai. Patricia, his attorney, requested time to review everything thoroughly. Khalid understood completely, professional, appropriate. He arranged for his legal team to work with Patricia. Documents were prepared, reviewed, revised. Marcus, Raymond, and Patricia spent 2 full days going through every clause, every term, every obligation. Patricia was thorough. She always was. But she didn't speak Arabic, and portions of the document contained Arabic text alongside the English. Khalid explained, these were standard terms required by UAE, law for international contracts, essentially restatements of the English terms for local regulatory purposes. His translator confirmed this. Everything checked out. They scheduled the signing for Friday morning at Khalid's office, a beautiful space on the 42nd floor of a gleaming tower in downtown Dubai. Floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the city, a conference table that could seat 20. Khalid's full team was there. His attorneys, his financial advisors, the translator, a serious young man in wire-rimmed glasses who'd been present at every meeting. The documents were laid out. Multiple copies, ribbons and seals that gave everything an air of ceremony and importance. Khalid made a short speech about partnership and vision and the future. He talked about bridging cultures through commerce and shared purpose. Marcus felt moved. He thought about calling his mother, who was 86 now, living in the same small house in Detroit where Marcus grew up. He wanted to tell her they'd made it. Really made it. Khalid gestured to the documents. He picked up a pen. Marcus did the same. Patricia and Raymond sat to his right, both smiling, both sharing in this moment they'd worked so hard to reach. The translator stood near the wall, ready to observe and confirm. Everything felt right. Marcus lowered his pen to the signature line. And that's when he heard the voice from the doorway. "Excuse me, I'm sorry, please. I need to say something." Everyone turned. A young woman stood in the entrance to the conference room. Early 20s, brown skin, wearing a housekeeping uniform. The kind the cleaning staff wore throughout the building. She was slight, barely 5 feet tall, but her eyes were intense. Terrified but determined. Khalid's expression changed instantly. He spoke sharply in Arabic. The woman flinched but didn't move. One of Khalid's assistants moved toward her. Marcus raised his hand. "Wait." He looked at the young woman. "What is it? What do you need to say?" The woman's hands were shaking. She glanced at the translator, then back at Marcus. She took a breath. "I speak Arabic. My mother works here. She cleans this office. I came to bring her medicine because she's not feeling well. I was in the hallway. I heard them talking before you came in. And I heard him." She pointed at the translator. "I heard what he's been saying to you. And I heard what they're actually saying in Arabic. It's not the same." The room erupted. Khalid stood, his voice rising. The translator started speaking rapidly. Patricia grabbed Marcus's arm. But Marcus kept his eyes on the young woman. He felt something in his chest. An instinct honed over decades of reading people and situations. He raised his voice. "Everyone stop." He looked at the young woman. "What's your name?" Aisha Williams. My mom is Sandra Williams. She's worked here for 6 years." Marcus nodded slowly. "Aisha, are you saying the translation we've been given is incorrect?" Aisha's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed steady. "Yes, sir. The Arabic sections in that contract don't match the English. The English says you're equal partners with equal decision-making authority. The Arabic says you're a subcontractor. It says they control all decisions. It says they can terminate the agreement at any time without cause and keep all assets. It says if there are disputes, they're resolved under UAE law in UAE courts, where you'll have no standing. It says you're personally liable for all debts and cost. Overruns but have no claim to profits. Beyond a small fixed fee." The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath him. He looked at Khalid, whose face had gone hard. He looked at the translator, who was staring at Aisha with undisguised hatred. He looked at Patricia, who'd gone pale. Khalid spoke, his voice cold now, all charm gone. "This young woman is mistaken. She's confused. Perhaps she overheard a different conversation. Perhaps her Arabic is not as good as she thinks. This is inappropriate. She should leave immediately." Marcus stood. His voice was quiet, but carried a weight that came from 5 decades of commanding construction sites and boardrooms. He kept his eyes on Khalid. "I need to have these documents reviewed by an independent Arabic translator before I sign anything." Khalid's jaw tightened. "That would be insulting to our relationship, to our partnership. We've spent days building trust." Marcus picked up the contract. "Then you won't mind waiting a few more hours while I verify the terms I'm agreeing to." The meeting ended badly. Khalid's team left the room in a storm of barely contained anger. Marcus, Patricia, and Raymond took the documents to 3 different translation services in Dubai. All 3 confirmed what Aisha had said. The Arabic text created an entirely different agreement, one that would have given Khalid's consortium complete control of Marcus's company, complete authority over all hiring and spending decisions, and complete protection from liability, while making Marcus personally responsible for any losses. It was a trap disguised as an opportunity, a way to acquire an American company with a good reputation, use it as a front, extract maximum value, and leave Marcus holding the bag when things went wrong. Marcus sat in his hotel room that night, staring at the Dubai skyline, feeling sick. How close had he come? Seconds. He'd been seconds away from signing, from destroying everything he'd built, from betraying everyone who trusted him, from proving his father's fears right that the world was designed to chew up people like them and spit them out. But more than anything, he thought about Aisha Williams, a young woman who had everything to lose and nothing to gain. Who could have walked past that conference room and said nothing? Who risked her mother's job, risked confrontation with powerful men, risked being called a liar and thrown out of the building. She could have stayed silent. Most people would have. Before leaving Dubai, Marcus found Sandra Williams. She was terrified, certain her daughter had gotten them both fired. Marcus assured her that wasn't going to happen. He asked about Aisha. Sandra told him her daughter was studying international relations at the American University in Dubai, working part-time to help pay tuition. She wanted to work in diplomacy to build bridges between cultures. She spoke 4 languages. She was brilliant and kind and had been raised to speak up when something was wrong, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Marcus met with Aisha at a coffee shop near campus. She was quiet, still processing what had happened. Marcus asked her why she'd spoken up. Aisha looked at him with those same intense eyes. "Because you didn't know," she said simply. "Because they were taking advantage of you and you didn't know. And I did know, so I had to say something. My mom taught me that if you see someone about to walk off a cliff and you say nothing, you're responsible too." Marcus asked what she wanted to study, what she hoped to do with her life. Aisha talked about her dreams of working for the State Department, of helping negotiate trade agreements that were fair, of using language to build understanding instead of hide deception. She talked about growing up between cultures, her father's family in Morocco, her mother's family in Georgia, learning to navigate different worlds. She wanted to use that ability to help people. Marcus flew back to Detroit. The deal was dead, but something else had been born. He couldn't stop thinking about what could have happened, about the moment in that conference room when everything hung in balance, about the courage it took for Aisha to walk through that door. 2 weeks later, he called her. He told her he wanted to create a scholarship fund at her university, specifically for students studying international relations and languages. The Aisha Williams Scholarship for Ethical Communication, enough to cover full tuition and living expenses for 10 students per year. He wanted her to help administer it, to choose recipients who understood that language was power, and that power came with responsibility. Aisha cried on the phone. She asked why. Marcus told her because she'd saved his company, saved his reputation, possibly saved his life, because she'd done the right thing, when it would have been easier and safer to do nothing. Because the world needed more people who would walk through that door and speak up. And if he could help create even a few more people like her, it would matter. But that wasn't the end of the story. 3 months later, Marcus got a call from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They'd been investigating Khalid al-Rashid's consortium for years. They had evidence of a pattern. American companies lured into fraudulent agreements, assets stripped, executives left liable for millions in debt. Several had gone bankrupt. 2 executives had died by suicide. The Bureau had been trying to gather enough evidence to act. They'd heard about what happened in Dubai. They wanted to talk to Aisha. Aisha agreed to cooperate. Her testimony, combined with the documents Marcus provided, helped the FBI build their case. 18 months later, Khalid al-Rashid and 6 members of his organization were indicted. The investigation revealed over $400 million in fraud across 12 years. Victims in 8 countries. American companies destroyed. Lives ruined. Marcus attended the trial. He watched Aisha take the stand. 23 years old, composed and clear, explaining in precise detail what she'd heard and why she'd known it was wrong. Khalid's attorneys tried to discredit her, suggested she'd misunderstood, that she was biased, that she had ulterior motives. Aisha never wavered. She simply told the truth. When it was over, when the verdicts came back guilty on all counts, Marcus stood with Aisha outside the courthouse. She was graduating next month. She'd been accepted to a master's program at Georgetown. She was going to study international law and human rights. She wanted to focus on protecting vulnerable people in cross-border transactions. She wanted to make sure no one else fell into the trap she'd helped Marcus escape. Marcus looked at this young woman who'd changed the course of his life, who'd shown him that heroism wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was a quiet voice in a doorway. Sometimes it was a choice to speak when silence would be easier. Sometimes it was seeing someone about to walk off a cliff and deciding, you have to say something. You have to try, even if you're scared, even if you might be wrong, even if no one will thank you. Today, Chen Construction is stronger than ever. Marcus eventually found legitimate partners and expanded into 3 new states. He employs over 700 people. He still knows most of their names. But his office has something new on the wall, a framed photograph from that courthouse day. Marcus and Aisha standing on the steps, sunlight streaming down, both of them smiling. And beneath it, words that Aisha spoke that morning at the coffee shop. Words that Marcus now shares with every new employee, every young person who asks him for advice. Every time he speaks at schools or community centers, if you see someone about to walk off a cliff and you say nothing, you're responsible too. That photograph reminds Marcus, every single day, why he built his company in the first place. Not just to create wealth, or win contracts, or prove something to the people who doubted him, but to create a place where doing the right thing matters, where speaking up is valued, where a young woman in a housekeeping uniform can walk into a room full of powerful men and change everything with 6 words. I know what they're really saying. Aisha Williams works for the State Department now. She's based in Washington, but travels the world helping negotiate trade agreements and resolve disputes. She specializes in ensuring translations are accurate, that all parties understand what they're agreeing to, that power imbalances don't become opportunities for exploitation. She carries a quiet authority that comes from knowing what it means to stand in a doorway and speak truth. When everything inside you wants to stay silent, her mother, Sandra, retired last year. Marcus hired her away from that Dubai office building, brought her to Detroit, gave her a job managing community outreach for Chen Construction. She coordinates partnerships with local schools, helps young people find pathways into skilled trades, makes sure the company remembers where it came from. She tells everyone about her daughter, about the day Aisha walked into that conference room and changed all their lives. The scholarship fund has grown. It's supported over 100 students now, young people from everywhere and nowhere, kids who grew up between languages and cultures, who understand what it means to be unseen and unheard. They're studying diplomacy and law and international business. They're learning that language is power, that translation is trust, that speaking up when something is wrong is a responsibility we all carry whether we want to or not. Sometimes Marcus thinks about that moment in the conference room, his pen hovering over the signature line, seconds away from disaster. He thinks about all the small choices that led to that moment and all the small choices that led away from it. He thinks about Aisha's mother bringing her medicine in the middle of a workday, about Aisha deciding to take it to her instead of leaving it at the front desk, about her standing in that hallway and hearing voices, about her deciding in that split second that she had to do something. She couldn't walk away. She couldn't let this happen. We all have those moments. Maybe not in gleaming office towers in Dubai, maybe not with $500 contracts. But moments when we see something wrong, when we know something isn't right, when we have information someone else needs, and we have to choose. Do we speak up or stay silent? Do we get involved or walk past? Do we risk making things awkward and uncomfortable? Or do we decide it's not our problem, not our business, not our responsibility? Aisha chose to speak. She chose involvement over safety. She chose courage over comfort, and Bika,